Hello everyone, in the last episode we have learned about WoW Model Viewer, and this time we will go into compositing process. During these tutorials I will refrain myself from using plugins, especially the paid ones. So I have my After Effects on at the moment and everything's already imported here. If you don't know how to import, you can just go to File, Import, or you can drag and drop your files into this place and drag and drop it into the project, not the effects control. I think when you run After Effects, the first thing that will pop out is the effects control, so you need to change it to project first. And the first step is to create a composition. You can either create a composition by composition, new composition, or you can just create this button over here. Now, I usually make one composition for every cut in my storyboard. So this will be a cut 2 actually. I'll be doing the cut 1 later. But you can do it any way you want. It's just I recommend using this method. And for the size I set it to 1080p and a frame rate of 2997. But you can set it to anything you want, like you want a 4K Machinima, you just go ahead, or you want a 60 frames per second, just go ahead. I think the most important thing is to suit with your computer's ability. So this is about the right for me. Now that we have a composition, we can put our footage inside. So as I said, I use only one cut for this, so I'm only importing one cut. These are the animations. This one is the background. I'm going to hide this animation first because you can see it better with this instead. So first of all, we need to get rid of the green screen. And to get rid of the green screen, I usually use key light over here. Oops. You can drag and drop to here, or you can just wait. Let me hide the others. Okay. Or you can just double click it while selecting the layer that you want. And then all you need to do is after click on the screen color and put it on the value, or you can just use the eyedropper tool and click it there. Now, why use a key light? Like there's a lot of keying effects. While using it, you'll see it like in a second. Like right now, you see like it's kind of fine if you look at it this way, but when I move it, like I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's a little bit transparent. Like it's kind of hard since I'm also recording, but let me do this instead. I think I have an idea on how to do it. I want to show you what's currently happening. So like if you can see right here, if I zoom in, you can see that you can still see the background. So this part is a little bit transparent, and for the reason, this is due to yellow and teal, which are the majority of the color here, is partly green. So if you know the hue, what you call the hue circle, yellow and cyan is like 50% green or something. So the key light thinks of it as something to remove, so they remove it. And how to fix it is actually really simple. Zoom up. Just go to screen matte here and reduce the clip white. Okay, now actually let me keep that cyan, this one, this light blue solid color, and let's put it somewhere here where it's clear to see. So if I were to lower it, you can see that it starts to fill, like it's no longer transparent. But you don't want to like put it really low. Like for example, let's use 5. Let's do something extreme. Like you can see it creates this black outline around your character, and well, I don't like it, but if you want it, it's up to you. Now if you don't want it, of course you want to keep it like as high as possible. So how to do it? Like, let me return this to 100 and remove the solid. We don't need it. Now what we're going to do is to change the view from final result to screen map. And I have to zoom out. Like, oops. You can see here like there's some blacks, or it's actually grays actually, but it's like blacks inside. Now if I reduce the clip white, you can see that it's starting to fill in. Okay, now this is what you're going to do. You want to reduce the clip white slowly but slowly until you can't see any non-white things. So I think 70 or 72. Actually there's still some around here, so 95. That's the point. So what does this black and white means is that black is the one that you want to key out, and white is the one that you want to keep. Like that's how math in keying works. So we want to make sure that everything inside the character border is white. So we return to final result, and we can see that it's no longer transparent. Like you can't see any border again, even if I zoom it in. That means like your matting is quite successful. Now there's still something wrong. Like if I were to turn off the key light, you can see that the yellows and the cyans are really it's not something that really, but if I turn this off, like we compare this color, you can see that the color is lost. Now why to this? It's actually the same reason why it becomes transparent. So the green is keyed out, but why doesn't it return to its original color? That's because the replace method that we're using is a soft color with a gray. So what it does, like when I lower the clip white, it fills the inside with a gray color. So if I wanted to fills it with the original footage, all I need to do is to change it to source. Now this trick is something that most machinimators didn't realize, like they just skipped this part, and all of them ended up with this result, and it kind of bugs me actually. But hey, this is how you do it. Change it to source and compare it again. It's completely good. The color, like there's no loss of color. Now we back on the matting. Remember when I said if you put the white too low, there will be black outlines. Now if I zoom it in again, you can see that there is now a green outline, which is way more obvious compared to black outline. Now why is it green? It's because you're using source. Like when you use soft color, it turns to black, like you can see here, because it's like a shade of gray. So what we need to do to remove it is basically we increase the clip black. So to fill, we lower the clip white. To reduce, we increase the clip black. I'm going to reduce it, and again you want to keep it as low as possible, just like clip white, because if not, like if I put it way too high, you can see that it's getting way more jagged. Like For example, I do it something like this. You can see that it's starting to chunk out stuff. And you also don't want to put the clip black above the clip white. So if I, let's say 75 here, it's going to go the other way around like this. And yeah, it's not something you want. And for this, we don't really need to go to screen matte because you can't actually see what's happening if it's just white. You need to go to the final result and reduce it. No need to be like too harsh on it because it's not really something that most people can notice from way far. So like, yeah, 30 is, I think 30 is enough. Like, I don't think any of you can actually see it from this distance. So that's about it for matting, but actually I usually add some screen softness. So what it does, it actually feathers the keying. For those of you who don't know what a feather is, it's something like blurring the edges. Like, let me just show, like if I to put this high, you can see it adds some kind of blur. It also shows the green again, which we don't want, so keep it like a bit lower, like maybe 1 or 2. Yeah, I think 2 is good. This adds a little bit more softer edges. If I were to put it to 0, you can see that it's a bit jagged. I want to add some more softness. And still speaking about softness, there's actually one effect that I want to use. It's called compound blur. And by adding it, it doesn't look really good. I mean, it's good for effects, but it doesn't really good for it. You just need to lower it like 0.5 and then invert the blur. And what it does, it creates a softer look for your character. So like, this is the before and this is the after. Like if it does, like I usually put it a bit higher, like 1. You can see it adds some more softness because, yeah, instead of pixelizations. So it's kind of optional. I mean, not a lot of people like something that's too soft. Like maybe this kind of thing more suits you better, so you can just delete the compound blur, but I just want to use it because it looks good for me. And that's it about the green screen and the softening. Now, going ahead, we will get into the color correction, because obviously at this point our character doesn't really fit into the background. Like it's still like a sticker on a wall, if I have to say. Now for color correction, what I usually use is a CC toner, but you can also use an effect called Pantone, or no, it's no longer here, is it? I don't know. There used to be an effect called Pantone. Add a CC toner. It changed from the 3-tone to Pantone here. And first of all, actually, we need to hide the background here and add what I would like to call a reference shot, which is this one. So, like what I mentioned in the first episode where fog is important, this is the part where fog is important. So reference shot is what it's something that I usually call for myself. There's no real name for it. Basically, this shot is made simply for the sake of color correction. And to make this shot, you'll need 4 components. The first one is fog, like I've mentioned. The second one is sky. So you can't do it indoor. Like I need the sky over here. And then thirdly is a light source. But unfortunately I don't really find a light source, because actually I found a light source, like there's a lantern over here, but it's actually more preferable to have either a moon or sun, but I don't know, Stormy doesn't have a moon, which makes me wonder why. And yes, I'll make it somehow work with the lantern. And lastly, you'll need a character or NPC or whatever. So this, like, I use my character over here as a reference, but since we're actually not in this what do you call it, in this area, because we're going to use this area, the reference character will be the NPCs around here instead of my character here. But if shooting like outside, this character can be your reference. Okay, so what else? So yeah, I think we can go right into the color correction. Go to the effects. Now, first of all, we set the dark tones to the fog, like the fog around here. And then set the midtones to the sky color, preferably the brighter one, like these parts around here. Maybe there. And set the brights into an area that is near the light source. So it'll be around this one right here. Now, of course, it doesn't really look that pretty. All we need to do is to set the blend with original. And you need to eyeball this. There's no exact value of how you want to set it. Just kind of, this is why the reference makes a good thing, because you can like guess how much of it. I think around 40 works about this time, or that's too dark. Let's try 50. Yeah, something like that. So that's about for the CC toner. We no longer need this reference shot, because as I said, we need this guy as the reference. So we're back in our original shot. The next thing we're going to add is an effect called photo filter. So inside of photo filter, there's actually only 6 that matters, like 6 filters that matters. Hold on. Okay, there's only 6 filters that matters. There's the warmings and the cooling, like you can ignore everything else. Or actually maybe underwater can be a good thing, but we're not using it at the moment. So well, now think it like this. Zones like Dunmorrow, Northrun, it's kind of cool zone, right? So in zones like that, you'll need to use the cooling filters. And zones like Elven Forest, Durotar, it's a warm zone. There's no snow or something like that, so just use the warming filters. Now which one to use, it's kind of up to you. Like again, it's an eyeballing. Which one do you think is the best? Oops. And if you can't really see it, you can just cramp the density up and kind of see which one suits the zone. I think LPA is good. Now again, eyeball with the density. Yeah, I don't think it's this warm. Maybe 25. It's around enough. And that's about it for the photo filter. We're going to go to the next part of color correction, which is exposure. So we're basically setting the brightness. As you can see, it's night and it's indoor. So we'll lower this. If it's a day or something, like just match it with the reference NPC or reference model that you're using. Yeah, it's not really that dark. Actually, the photo filter is a bit too much. So yeah, something like this. Like now our characters looks more like he's actually inside the scene. And well, that's about it for color correction. Also, like, let me just show you again for the reference shot. Like if I were to match this color with this, it'll be like too dark to be with this scene. So you will need to adjust something like that. But if you're only using this scene, you won't be able to get the sky, the fog, and everything else. So yeah, it's something that really matters about taking shots and stuff like that. Now, what we're going to do now is to fake simple lighting effects. So a famous effect that is named light sweep. Okay, so see a light sweep over here, and yep, it adds like this kind of ray of light. Now, first of all, you imagine like where is the light coming from, and I think the light will be coming from the middle of the room. Let's say it'll be around here, and adjust the rotation. Maybe something like this. Now what you want to do is to change the shape from sharp to smooth, so it makes it smooth, and then always put the sweep intensity to 0. Don't put it at any values other than 0, because it's not really something that you want. It kind of breaks with the Machinima or something. What you want is to set the width to like something really high, and it's actually accordingly. You don't want it to cover the whole model, something like this, because the light doesn't always reach these parts, so you don't want to lower to 300 or something. Yeah, I think it's around 300 is maybe this time. Now the second step is to imagine, like, does this light comes from in front of your model or from your character or behind it, because these two light position requires two different settings of light sweep. So in case we're having, like, for example, I will be using this light instead of the middle light. Ignore the direction, okay? What I want to do is I want to have a quite high intensity. Don't let it be like very wide, like you don't want it to be something like this wide. Just keep it somewhere, don't go over 50, something like that, but keep it, maybe 60 will work. Like, keep it bright while keep the thickness to low, because the light is coming from behind. It will only reach the tips of your character. If the light source is in front of your character, you'll want to do the exact opposite, which is lower the intensity but increase the thickness, like let's set it to 20 to maximum. Now what it does is like add this a little white and soft light in front. And yeah, that's pretty much the logic behind it. If you still don't understand, you can go try and play around with a flashlight. Like, I don't know, maybe use your hand and then try from behind your hand and then see the difference in the lighting that is perceived by your hand. Now, lastly, like the last step is just change the light color accordingly to the color of the light source. So if I remember, like in the middle there's also this kind of lamp. Hold on a second. So yeah, what you want to do is just set it something like this, perhaps. Okay, so and then since there's light, we'll also need a little bit of shadows. We add another light sweep. So yeah, we'll be using a light to create a shadow effect. And usually what you want to do is you set it to the opposite way, like the angle here. But instead of like exactly opposite, I usually put it a little bit close to the 180. Maybe that's too close, so hold on. Maybe something like this. And again, set it to smooth, sweep and zero. And on the opposite for light, when the light source is in front, you will want a low thickness value. When the light is in the back, you want a higher thickness value. But for the intensity, usually it doesn't really matter much, I guess, but you can also play around with it. Now, because we're using shadow, of course, we need to change the light color to something dark. And I recommend using the fog color, like the one that you use in the dark tones here. So I click it, and the effect kind of disappears. Like, you don't really see the effect, like there's no before and after. But don't panic over this. All you need to do is to change the light reception from add to composite. You can see it adds this shadow back. And yeah, we need to increase the width. I forgot. So something like that, you can see how it adds shadows around this part. So reducing the light from the front, I'm using a little bit of low value for thickness. For some of you might think that is quite high, but well, it's kind of eyeballing as well, actually. So, oh yeah, for those of you that doesn't understand like what this add and composite is, it's actually kind of hard to. It's not hard to explain, but if I want to explain it, I think it's better if I explain it in another whole video, because it will cover like an entire new topic and it will take a lot of time, and I don't want to go off topic for this video. But basically, if you want to know for yourself, you can just search on Google or something, try layer styles, and you'll probably find some clues about it. But I'll think of making a video about it, but I don't know when. So the last thing that I want to say is you need to be careful with using light sweeps, especially for this kind of scenes, like this kind of cutscenes. You cannot, and it's not really visible from this. Let me just add like another light sweep for an example. if I were to put center here, like let's just say you want there to be a light effect from somewhere around this direction, put it something like that. Yeah, something like this. Again, put it usually the white, set intensity to 0. Now I want to make it a little bit of visible. Oh wait, that's the other way around. So yeah, like this is the problem that I want to address. Like light sweep detects the edges, so this technically acts like edges, but you clearly doesn't want it to look like this. Another example of this kind of mistake is that if you take a look at my Civil War scene, you can see about around the time Tenochtitlan transform into a worgen, like this kind of mistake is also happen. Now it's kind of hard to not have this, but you can always like move it somewhere around here so that people don't see the error happening, or you can just scale it up a little bit or something. It's just there's a lot of method to hide this kind of errors. As long as you understand what's actually going on, that's fine. Because now we're going to continue with shadowing. However, I'm not really using any shadows in this scene, because as you can see, like the lower part of the body is not actually visible, so there's no real reason for me to use shadows. But for the sake of tutorial, I just go ahead and make a bit of a random scene for it. Hold on a second. Okay, so I have a screenshot of the same paladin over here. Just put it into the scene. And then copy all the effects here. To this guy. Okay, cool. So as you can see, we have this character and it's actually standing, and although it doesn't really proportionally right, but I'll just keep it a little bit simple actually. So there are two types of shadowing available. One is circular shadow and the other one is body shadow. So circular shadow basically just creates a circle underneath it. It's not the most realistic shadow, but it does the job and it's really simple. You can't mess this up, and people usually don't like becomes angry just because it's not really realistic, because it does the job. So to make it, you can simply create a solid black. Okay, let's solid black over here, and then people usually use a circle mask. Why is it lagging so much? And the ellipse tool, create a mask, feather it, and turn the opacity. Now most machinimators, alright, so let me move it behind because that's what you're supposed to do. Now most machinimators tend to just select a mask, something like this, like right away. I don't recommend it. It's not that it's wrong, but it's just not effective. So for reasons, first of all, like for example, you make your character really close to the bottom of this scene, like maybe something like this, like it's cut, but you still need shadow over it. Now you'll normally want to make a shadow something like this, I guess. Yeah, something like this where it's also cut over here. Now as we know, we'll usually feather it. For those of you who don't know how to open the feather, you can just click on the mask and press F. It will bring you to mask feather, or you can just like in this state open it. There's mask feather around here, so I just use F and feather it, usually about this much, and then lower the opacity. Yep. Yeah, I think this works fine. Now it looks fine like this, but in case like your character is actually moving, like for example it moves from here to here, and then you also need the shadow to follow. Hold on, you need the shadow to follow. Now as you can see, like if you zoom in, it's a cut, like it's cut right around here. You don't want that. Now secondly, transformation is a bit hard. So like again, it's usually involved with the movement. Like in case the character moves closer to the camera, you want the shadow to become bigger. Now if I scale this up, it does scales up, but it also moves the shadow away from where it's supposed to be. So every time I scale up, I need to adjust the position, scale it up again, adjust the position again. It's not something you really want to do. And other than skills, moving it, it's not really that hard, but I prefer to move things from their anchor point right here. So it'll always be better if the anchor point is at the center of the shadow. Now other things also involve rotation. Like in case you need to rotate your shadow, if I were to rotate this, it will rotate accordingly to the anchor point, and it makes things hard. But again, if you want to do it this way, it's fine. But what I will do. So let me reset this and scale 100. And for position, yeah, by the way, like if you want scale, just press S, rotation press R, position press P, opacity press T, and something like that. Like you can actually Google this kind of key bindings, because sometimes I also forget to mention it, and I'm sorry for it. Okay, so let's reset it back to the center. It's 960 and 540, and set the opacity back. So what I do, instead of drawing my own mask, I will simply double click this ellipse tool, and you can see it already creates an ellipse. Now you want to double click the mask, double click it until this grayish box shows up, and make it smaller. Make it smaller. The borders, because if it touches the border, like I won't fix this part first. If I touch the border and you were to feather it, okay, and let's say I scale this down, again it's cut, like it's cut around here. So you want to keep it off from the border. Oh, yeah, maybe something like this will do. And then adjust the feathers, turn the opacity low, something like that. Now all we need to do now is to adjust the scale, and you can unlock the scale to adjust the X and Y manually so that it will fix. As you can see, the anchor point is right around the center. It's not perfectly in the center of the shadow because the mask adjustment is not really snapping to, yeah, it doesn't really follow. And here we go, we have a shadow underneath. Actually, let me put this. So yeah, we got the shadow. And now if you want to move it, you want to scale it up and down, you want to rotate it, it becomes easier this way. Now, for the second shadow type, this will create a more realistic look. Okay, so let me just delete this. We don't need it anymore. It'll create a more realistic look, but most machinimators don't bother using it because it's way harder. It requires like a lot more effort for something that is not guaranteed good, because something like circular shadow is something that almost always good. It never goes wrong as long as you put it right under the feet. So the body shadow is something that you need to adjust almost every single frame. But yeah, for the sake of tutorial, let me just show you. What you need to do is just duplicate it. To duplicate, you can just right click. I'm sorry. I click rename. Sorry. And right click and just duplicate. Alright, strains. It's nowhere around here. I think it's using this one. Oops. Layer. And that's strange. Okay, so whatever. You can use Control D, like Control D, and create like an exact copy of it. Like you can see an exact copy of it. Now you want the lower layer here, or you can just switch it out, something like this. And you want to delete every effect. Oops, sorry. I mean every effect except the key light. So it maintains the shape, but not the shading and whatsoever. And then what you want to do is give it a fill effect. Okay. It's kind of heavy to run in After Effects while recording your screen. Like, I don't really recommend doing it unless you have a really good computer. And set it to black, like pure black. Okay. And then it becomes our shadow. Or actually we need to add a Gaussian blur, or a box blur will also do, like this fast box blur will also do. And yeah, it's just Gaussian. This is for the replacement for feather, or you can actually just top this thing softness to high value. But yeah, you can use Gaussian blur as well. So yeah, it's a 70.5 I think. So makes it not sharp. And also reduce the opacity again, maybe around 40, something like that. And also, now what you need to do is go to skill and unlock it, and oops, wait, wrong one, sorry, this one. And yep, basically move it here, change it to minus, and match the lag. Actually you need to make it smaller. It's kind of hard to see, like there's not much of a ground to actually see what's happening. Or maybe we'll use this background instead. Okay, let's just, oops, let's just say it's right over there. Now I'll put the shadow. Let's kill this guys down a little bit. Okay, so you need to adjust the shadows, something like this. Like, yeah, it's kind of hard. Like, you see how hard it is to even adjust only this. Now that's if the light is coming from behind. If the light is coming from front, well, you just need to make this positive. And yep, place it on behind. Now what if it's diagonal? You can add an effect named transform, I think. Yes, transform. Actually, let me put it on front, it's more visible that way. And there's this Q thing. And you can play around with it. It's actually really hard. You can also use this Q axis. Yeah, I think it's something like this if you want a diagonal shadow, something that I don't recommend. But it does have its own uses. Like for stills, for characters that doesn't really move, doesn't really do anything crazy, like just standing there or talking, you can use this type of shadows because it's quite simple and have quite a good look to it. But for moving objects, no, don't use it. Let me actually give you an example. Usually for something like this kind of thing, that body person, and now to copy the effects, duplicate it, put below, delete all the effects except kill light. And let's just use the fill and Gaussian blur from here. So, for example, let's just say there's a dead guy somewhere over here. And for the shadows, you can actually use that type of body shadow. I usually scale it like, I don't know, I mean accordingly. I think about this much is enough. And then yeah, put the opacity low. And increase the blurriness a little bit. And actually gives a better shadow rather than a circular shadow in these cases. Or you want someone like standing right in front of a wall, or you want to put a poster and the poster needs shadows. you can use this kind of method. But yeah, for moving objects, I'll say no, don't do it. Okay, so that's about it for color correction and shadows. I'll delete these things. Also this one and this one, the solid. And we're back on actually animating our scene. So wait, hold on, what's happening? Oh, okay, it's back. Yeah, just like I have a keyed out and color corrected. Usually I just set the size to fill the, I just right click. Actually you too. Position, make sure that it's centered. Right click, transform, and I want to set it to fit to compate so that it fills the whole scene, and probably add like 2 more for the safekeeping for the light sweep effect that I said before. And then actually I need to adjust the background a little bit. Yeah, maybe something like this. Okay, so what we're going to do now, like, I'm going to lower this so that it creates a faster. Now you can see that this is an animation of talk exclamation, and then another one. Alright, I need to copy these effects first. Boom, corrected. And this one is question mark top. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to make sure that this animation can continues correctly to this animation. So what we need to do is double click this, and you'll be taken to the footage like this one. And what you want to do is you want to find the idle state. So most of World of Warcraft animation starts and ends with their stand animation, or maybe if it's a combat animation, it'll return to ready animation, something like that. So we're going to browse around this thing, and wow, it's really slow on preview. And yep, this is the stand animation, like where his hands are down, he's straight, like no other animation. And after this, he will start doing the animation, the exclamation, sorry, and it will return to that idle position again, which is this one. So that means we only need this part up to this part, and to cut it easily, all you need to do is to press these 2 buttons. This button will cut everything after your, so you can see it's all gone, and this one part here is also cut, and before, like the first idle animation is this one. Yeah, this one. And just click this one instead, which will cut everything before. Now we have our animation like only playing this part. Okay, I need to make sure that there's no skip frames. Now we need to do the same with the next animation, which is the question animation. Yes, this is something in the middle. Now its idle state will be this one, and the second one, it's already start moving again. Yeah, this one. So it moves like this. Okay, it's good. Now all you need to do is move it roughly around here, and then you need to zoom it in. Actually, since this one is pretty short, like it doesn't even take up to 4 seconds, but let's just say if I go to composition settings, the duration, let's say I want to set it to 15 seconds. And you want to have like this part, like you can't actually keep it right at when you want it to be, and you'll need to zoom it in. You can just select this and drag it, or you can press this button until it's really small. Now what you want to keep in mind is that you want it right after, like there's no skip frame. Some Machinimas doesn't notice, and they put like this gap over here, and if you see the animation, the people will go missing for 1 frame before returning, and that's bad. And if you put it like too fast, there will be doubles. Although since you're using an idle animation, you can't really notice the difference. Like you can see, this is one of the importance why you need to use the idle animations to connect. It blends more. Like some animation doesn't start and ends with the idle animations, like maybe they start something like this. Now it looks like jumping, don't you think? So yeah, let me just undo it. And yeah, now how much? I think I need to lower this even more. This is 16. Now you can't really see it, but let's just say I want to preview this. But you can see how it transitions from one animation to another smoothly. Like even Nixium usually don't get to this much of a detail in machinimating. And yeah, I really recommend you to keep an eye for something like this. So yeah, just do it the same. Just do the same thing for the other animations and stuff. So yep, that's it actually. So in the next episode, we'll go through cinematic looks and color gradings. Focus on creating camera depth and then adding feels to your scene by color grading, making it either epic or comedic, something like that. But yeah, thank you for those who have listened this far. Leave a like and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Come on.